There is a peculiar stillness that surrounds those who wake up inwardly. It is not the stillness of someone withdrawing from life. It is the stillness of someone who has stopped running from themselves. Alan Watts spent years describing this strange edge between solitude and clarity, a space where the awakened person stands as if outside the usual human drama. When someone reaches this level of inner awareness, their relationships begin to shift in ways that are often invisible from the outside. It is not a rejection of people, it is a new kind of relationship with reality. Today on The Way of Watts, we explore why the spiritually awake often travel with fewer companions, and why this is not a tragedy but a sign of alignment. If this journey resonates with your inner compass, subscribe to The Way of Watts so you can walk with us through every new exploration. The first reason spiritually awake people do not have many friends is the simple fact that they see without filters. Most people move through life with layers of emotional fog that soften the sharpness of truth. These filters protect them from contradictions in their behavior, from the tension between who they pretend to be and who they truly are, and from the impact of their unprocessed emotions. The awakened person no longer uses these filters. Their perception becomes raw, precise, and uncomfortably honest. They notice the small hesitations in someone's voice, the subtle shift of tension when a person hides something, the way energy contracts when someone falls into defense. This clarity changes social dynamics. When you see people clearly, you cannot pretend you do not. You cannot act as if their mask is their real face. This makes many interactions feel hollow to the awakened mind. It becomes difficult to stay in friendships that survive only through shared illusions, unspoken compromises, or mutual denial. Spiritually awake people interact with the authentic core of others, not the persona, but many individuals cling tightly to that persona because they fear what lies beneath. Being seen too clearly creates discomfort, and so people drift away, not because they dislike the awakened person, but because they are not ready for that level of transparency. It is like standing in bright light after a lifetime in dim rooms. It feels overwhelming, and so naturally, the awakened person's circle shrinks, leaving only those who can stand without hiding. Another reason spiritually awakened individuals have fewer friendships is their relationship with solitude. They spend long stretches moving through their inner landscape, tracing the origins of their thoughts, observing emotional patterns, questioning memories, and dissolving inherited beliefs. This inner navigation becomes a daily practice. It is not a retreat from society, but an exploration of the roots beneath the surface of consciousness. Time spent in solitude is not empty for them. It is vivid, structured, and alive. It becomes a workshop where they refine their awareness. Because of this, they no longer feel compelled to fill silence with noise or loneliness with company. They prefer spaces where presence is more important than stimulation. For most people, socializing is a way to distract themselves from unresolved tensions or to avoid looking inward. But the awakened person enters social settings with a different purpose. They seek resonance, not entertainment. They value depth over activity, sincerity over excitement. This naturally narrows their social world. Many friendships rely on constant interaction to survive, but the awakened person requires long intervals of inner recalibration. They step back not out of avoidance, but out of respect for their own psychological clarity. And only a small number of people understand this rhythm. Those who do become precious companions, those who do not drift away, leaving behind a more refined and peaceful circle. There is also the emotional gravity that awakened individuals naturally carry. Their presence has weight. It does not come from intensity or pressure, but from the absence of fragmentation. When someone has integrated their inner conflicts and learned to sit with their own truth, their presence quietly influences the emotional atmosphere around them. Others feel this shift even if they cannot name it. It becomes harder for people to maintain their usual defense mechanisms or escape routes. Conversations deepen without effort. Thoughts sharpen, emotions rise to the surface. This gravity pulls things out of hiding. Some people find this liberating, like stepping into fresh air after breathing recycled oxygen for years. Others find it frightening because it threatens the protective illusions they rely on. This is why awakened individuals often make others feel unusually seen or exposed, not because they judge, but because they radiate a kind of honesty that amplifies the unspoken. Casual friendships struggle under this weight. People prefer comfort, not transformation. They prefer familiar emotional patterns, not silent invitations to grow. So the awakened person is left with fewer but stronger connections, forged not through entertainment but through truth. Another factor that reshapes their social world is their unwillingness to join social echo chambers. Most friendships function as emotional mirrors, where people reflect each other's frustrations, beliefs, and interpretations of life. They bond through shared complaints, shared enemies, and shared dramas. But the awakened person no longer echoes. They question. They dissolve assumptions. They reframe emotionally charged narratives. This disrupts the familiar rhythm of social interaction. When someone wants to gossip, the awakened person redirects. When someone wants to complain, they examine the root cause instead of feeding the fire. When someone wants validation for a personal illusion, the awakened person offers clarity instead of agreement. This makes them appear distant even when they are fully present. It is simply that they cannot participate in cycles of emotional recycling. Without this participation, many social rituals collapse. The awakened person does not reject people. They reject patterns that drain awareness. Without those patterns, most friendships built on them naturally fade. Many spiritually awakened people also lose friends because they no longer fit into expected social roles. Most relationships subtly rely on these roles. One person becomes the fixer, another becomes the entertainer. Someone else becomes the quiet listener who absorbs everyone's complaints. These roles create predictability, and predictability creates comfort. But the moment someone awakens, they stop playing these roles. They see how artificial they are. They see how they keep people trapped in repetitive emotional loops. An awakened person cannot operate from a script. They respond from presence, not expectation. This disrupts the balance that many friendships rely on. If someone expects them to be the constant problem solver, they no longer step into that role. If someone wants emotional validation rather than truth, the awakened person cannot provide it. If someone is used to leaning on them to escape responsibility, that pattern dissolves. People often interpret this as distance or coldness, but it is simply authenticity. When you stop performing a role, people who depend on that role must either evolve with you or exit your life. The awakened individual is not trying to push others away. They are creating a landscape where only genuine connection can survive. This naturally leads to a smaller circle, but one built on truth rather than emotional contracts. Another major reason spiritually awakened individuals move through life with fewer friendships is their shift from social stimulation to presence. Most people rely on constant activity to feel connected. Outings, noise, movement, and distraction form the glue that holds their relationships together. But the awakened person is no longer satisfied by stimulation. They look for presence, which is the ability to be fully here without escaping into noise. This creates a silent divide. They prefer deep conversations that stretch inward rather than outward. They appreciate small, unforced moments rather than busy gatherings. They can spend time with others without needing entertainment, but most people cannot. Many individuals fear silence because silence reveals their inner unrest. Spiritually awake people are comfortable in silence because they have faced their inner world rather than run from it. This difference in comfort creates distance. The awakened person becomes too quiet or too calm for social groups that feed on drama and movement. They do not chase social excitement because their mind is not dependent on it. They seek authenticity, sincerity, and emotional clarity, which are rare qualities. This shift limits the number of people they can connect with because few individuals are ready to sit in presence without reaching for distraction. Spiritually awakened individuals also escape what can be called social gravity wells. These are patterns of emotional downward pull, such as constant complaining, envy, comparison, and self-pity. These patterns keep people trapped in low states of awareness because they create emotional cycles that never resolve. When someone awakens, they break free from these cycles. They refuse to participate in conversations centered on negativity. They refuse to reinforce victim narratives. They refuse to compare themselves with others or absorb emotional chaos. This refusal confuses many people because emotional gravity wells are socially normalized. Complaining is often a bonding mechanism. Criticism becomes a shared pastime. Drama becomes a way to feel alive. But the awakened person sees the cost. They see how these conversations drain energy, distort perception, and prevent growth. They no longer allow themselves to be pulled into these patterns. Their detachment is often interpreted as judgment, even when it is simply self-protection. Over time, people who rely on these emotional cycles drift away because the awakened individual offers no fuel for them. This leaves the awakened person surrounded only by people who also refuse to sink into these emotional pulls. It reduces the number of friends, but it increases the quality of connection. There is also the matter of internal language. Spiritual awakening changes how a person thinks. Their metaphors shift, their values shift. Their perception of life shifts. They begin to speak from a place of inward clarity rather than outward conditioning. This creates a kind of invisible language barrier between them and others. Most people speak from habit, from cultural patterns, from emotional reactivity. Awakened individuals speak from self-awareness and deliberate observation. They notice the energy behind words, not just the words themselves. Their conversations become anchored in meaning rather than routine chatter. This makes small talk difficult. It makes superficial topics feel empty. It makes forced conversation uncomfortable. This does not mean awakened people speak in spiritual cliches. It means they speak from a deeper layer of reality. Only people who have done similar inner work can understand this internal vocabulary. Without shared inner language, connection becomes fragile. People may feel that the awakened person is too intense or too abstract because they sense this unfamiliar depth. As a result, only those who resonate with the same inner landscape remain close. This reduces the number of relationships, but strengthens the level of understanding within them. One of the subtler reasons spiritually awakened individuals end up with fewer friendships is their departure from collective illusions. Much of human bonding happens inside shared mental constructs. People build invisible worlds together where they agree on what is important, what is frightening, what is desirable, and what is worth defending. These shared illusions create a sense of unity because they give people a common script. When someone awakens, they step outside the script. They see the artificial nature of many beliefs that groups hold on to. They notice how people cling to certain ideas not because they are true, but because they feel safe. Once an awakened person steps outside these illusions, they can no longer participate as before. They cannot pretend to care about competitions that mean nothing to them. They cannot invest emotional energy into conflicts built on misunderstanding. They cannot join rituals of conformity or reward systems that rely on ego. This creates distance between them and those who remain inside these structures. People may feel that the awakened individual has changed or become detached, but the truth is that they simply stop playing a part in a shared illusion. This can be unsettling for others because it forces them to question the solidity of their own beliefs. Many choose comfort over questioning, and so the awakened person naturally finds themselves outside of certain circles, watching from a clear perspective as others continue reenacting stories they can no longer take seriously. This reduces the number of friendships, yet replaces quantity with authenticity. There is also the way spiritually awakened individuals move in and out of social spaces with intention. Their presence follows an inner rhythm rather than social expectation. They do not attend gatherings out of fear of missing out. They do not maintain conversations out of obligation. They do not stay connected just to avoid disappointing others. Instead, they appear when their energy is aligned and withdraw when they need internal recalibration. This selective presence is often misunderstood as inconsistency. People sometimes assume that the awakened person is unreliable, distant, or uninterested. In reality, they are simply honoring their inner state. They know when their mind needs silence. They know when they must retreat into introspection. They know when a social setting is nourishing and when it is draining. This level of self-awareness challenges the expectations of others who rely on continuous engagement to maintain connection. Many friendships depend on frequent contact. When the awakened person does not match this pace, the connection weakens. Only a few people understand that presence can be meaningful even when it is infrequent. These are the ones who remain. The rest drift away, leaving the awakened individual with a small but deeply compatible circle that respects their internal timing. Another key force that reduces the number of friendships is the awakened person's understanding of aloneness. They discover that being alone is not the same as being lonely. Aloneness becomes a fertile space where the mind can unfold without interference. It becomes a sanctuary rather than a void. Many people fear being alone because they fear meeting themselves. They rely on others to avoid confronting their own insecurities, doubts, and unresolved emotions. The awakened person has already walked through that inner territory. They have faced their shadows and survived. This changes their relationship with solitude. They no longer seek people to escape themselves. They seek people who resonate with their truth. This shift reduces the urgency to fill their life with company. They do not cling to friendships out of fear of emptiness. They do not chase people to avoid silence. This makes their social landscape quieter but more intentional. Many individuals misunderstand this inner peace as aloofness. They cannot comprehend someone who enjoys solitude without feeling isolated. Because of this, the awakened person's circle becomes smaller, filled only with people who understand that solitude is not a prison, but a space of clarity. These connections are rare, but they are sincere. Energetic compatibility also plays a large role. As awareness increases, sensitivity increases. Spiritually awakened individuals can sense the emotional turbulence, unspoken frustrations, and psychological storms within others. They feel the weight of unresolved trauma and the friction of contradictions. This does not make them judgmental. It makes them selective. They protect their energy because they understand how fragile clarity can be. They avoid people who drain their vitality, who bring chaos instead of calm, who rely on others to stabilize their emotional instability. This is not rejection, it is discernment. They choose relationships that amplify peace, not tension. They gravitate toward people who take responsibility for their inner world, who speak honestly, who do not project their pain onto others. Because this level of energetic compatibility is rare, it drastically reduces the number of potential friendships. The awakened person is not looking for perfection. They are looking for alignment. They are looking for people whose presence feels like steady ground, not shifting sand. Such individuals are few, but they form the core of the awakened person's small circle. Finally, the path of awakening itself is an uncrowded road. It requires self-honesty, self-observation, humility, and the willingness to face uncomfortable truths. Few choose this path. Even fewer stay committed to it. As someone deepens their inner work, they become naturally distanced from those who remain anchored in surface-level thinking. Their values shift, their priorities shift, their understanding of life shifts. They begin to move through the world with a quieter, more deliberate presence. This path does not attract crowds. It attracts a handful of people who share the same hunger for truth. The awakened person walks this road with slow steps, with eyes open, with a mind that no longer seeks shelter in illusions. They are not alone because they cannot find people. They are alone because their path leads through places where only a few are willing to walk. And those few become companions of depth rather than number. In the end, a spiritually awakened person is not someone who loses friends. They are someone who sheds what no longer aligns with their clarity. Their life becomes shaped by resonance rather than noise. Their circle becomes smaller, but each connection carries weight and meaning. If your own circle has been shrinking, understand that you are not drifting away from people, you are drifting toward yourself. You are making space for the right voices, the right energies, the right companions. Thank you for staying with me on the Way of Watts. If this journey has influenced your inner landscape, return for the next exploration. Until then, stay rooted in your truth, steady in your steps, and honest in the quiet rooms of your mind. Farewell for now.